Marcus Bellamy showed up in a tailored suit ready to lead a major Summit Link conference, but hotel staff looked him over and told him to wait outside. What happened next left the entire company reeling. It was just before 8 a.m. when Marcus stepped out of his sleek black Lincoln Continental onto the hotel's circular driveway in downtown San Jose. He adjusted the cuff of his navy blue suit jacket, the tailored fabric catching a bit of the morning light. Sharp lines, crisp shirt, Italian leather shoes, and a subtle glimmer from his late father's watch, which he often adjusted at key moments as if setting a new time for his destiny. Everything about him spoke of intention and precision, yet the valet didn't move, not even a step forward. Marcus held his keys loosely in one hand and glanced over at the young man, who looked away, pretending to check his phone, then turned toward the car behind. "Hey, can you park this one?" the valet asked his coworker, gesturing past Marcus without acknowledging him. Marcus looked at the glass doors of the hotel. No big signage, no red carpet, just clean glass and a quiet foyer. Nothing to suggest what would unfold inside those walls. He took his keys back, parked his car himself, and walked across the drive. As he opened the front door, he noticed the subtle shift in the concierge's smile. It vanished just as quickly as it came. "Can I help you?" the woman at the front desk asked without looking up. "Yes, Marcus Bellamy," he said. "I'm here for the Summit Link conference. I believe you have the cedar room reserved for us." The woman quickly scanned his face, frowned, then looked back down at her screen. "Do you work for one of the vendors?" she asked. "No, I'm the CEO," he replied evenly. She blinked briefly. "Could you wait outside for a moment? We're still prepping the space." At that moment, as her indifferent tone echoed in his ears, Marcus was suddenly transported back to his early career. He remembered the sting of a similar rejection, when at just 22, he had been dismissed without a second glance. The memory, though painful, steeled his resolve. "I'm also the keynote speaker," he reminded her. There was no apology, no moment of realization, just a tight smile and a flat, "We're not quite ready. Please wait outside." Almost immediately, another staff member, a young man in a blazer with a walkie-talkie clipped to his belt, appeared behind her. He looked Marcus up and down as if checking for a badge. "You with security?" he asked, lowering his voice. "Marcus Bellamy," he replied evenly. "The conference you're hosting today?" "I run it," came a beat of silence. Then the man tilted his head toward the door. "Just give us a few, sir. We'll call someone to come get you." Marcus let out a slow, measured breath. People were starting to arrive. A couple of early investors, one of them a white man in a gray plaid suit, instantly greeted with handshakes and warm smiles. No one had been asked to wait outside. Marcus caught his eye, but the man barely registered him and went on through the lobby, escorted by the same staff who had just asked him to step outside. The hotel doors closed behind him with a soft hiss. Now standing on the pavement once again, Marcus checked his watch. 8:09. His speech wasn't for another 51 minutes. He had time, yet something was boiling inside him. Not anger, but a cold, resolute determination. Across the street, a mother pushed a stroller toward a coffee shop. A bus wheezed to a stop at the corner, and life moved on, even as Marcus stood there. A grown man who had built a company from scratch, treated like he didn't belong simply because he didn't look like what they expected. His phone buzzed. "Boss came," said the voice of his assistant Damon. "Just checking. Did they greet you yet?" Marcus stared at the hotel doors, his tone calm but laden with memories. "Not exactly. They asked me to wait outside." There was a pause, no shock, no disbelief, just silence. Damon, who had worked with Marcus long enough to know that his measured tone meant he was cataloging every slight, asked, "Want me to come down?" "No," Marcus replied. "Stay with the investors. They'll be arriving in the next 15. Let me handle this." He hung up, straightened his tie, and walked back through the doors. Inside, the same woman behind the counter saw him, but her expression remained unchanged. "I thought I asked you to wait outside, sir," she said, tapping something into the keyboard. "I did," Marcus said plainly, pausing as a fresh wave of memory washed over him. This was nothing new, just another echo from his past that had shaped him into the man he was today. Now, I'd like to speak with the event coordinator. My name is Marcus Bellamy. I'm the founder and CEO of Bellamy Dynamics. We booked the Cedar Room and 2 floors of your suites for this conference. The woman looked him in the eyes, and for a moment, a flicker of doubt crossed her face, as if she were trying to reconcile the man before her with the image on her screen. "Mr. Bellamy?" she ventured. "Yes," he replied softly. Then she turned to the young man in the blazer. "Can you call Sabrina from events?" The man nodded and walked off. Meanwhile, a bellhop wheeled by with a luggage cart stacked with briefcases. Marcus stepped aside and caught a glimpse of 2 board members emerging from the elevator, each sporting Summit Link conference badges clipped to their suits. They greeted a hotel manager who seemed to have materialized out of thin air to shake their hands. Marcus raised a hand slightly to gain the manager's attention. The manager glanced at him, hesitated, then turned away. "Ma'am," Marcus said calmly, turning back to the front desk. "I'm going to say this one more time. I'm not a guest. I'm not with security. I'm not delivering anything. I'm the reason these people are staying here. I organized this entire conference. I brought 60 of the most influential investors on the West Coast into this building today." The woman opened her mouth, but before she could speak, the man with the walkie-talkie returned. "She's on her way," he said, then after a pause, "You really?" Marcus gave a small smile. "I didn't just build this company. I financed it. I wrote the first line of code. I signed the contract with this hotel, and I chose this location because I believed in the idea of professional courtesy." They both stared at him. He added, "I've got $5 billion under management, and I almost trusted you to help grow that." The silence that followed was not of disbelief, but of discomfort. The woman behind the desk shifted, suddenly unsure of what to say, when Sabrina from events briskly entered the lobby holding a folder. "Mr. Bellamy, I am so sorry for the delay. We weren't informed you'd arrived. Please come with me. We have the Cedar Room set and coffee being served. The investors are already gathering." The same staff who had earlier dismissed him now stepped back as if clearing a path. Marcus followed Sabrina past the desk, past the man with the walkie-talkie, and past the woman whose face now flushed with a mix of embarrassment and something else he couldn't quite read. He said nothing further. He didn't need to. What they had failed to see wasn't a man trying to sneak into a space where he didn't belong, but a man who owned that space, giving them a final chance to right their mistake. Later, in a private lounge reserved for speakers, Marcus closed the door and pulled out his phone. "Carmen," he said when his head of operations picked up, "we're moving the conference." There was no gasp on the other end. "Today?" asked Carmen, used to his calm tone. "Right now. How do you want to relocate 50 people with less than an hour's notice?" "Not a problem. Should I call the Fairmont or the Aurora?" she offered. "I want every investor redirected there. Make sure they understand. This isn't a scheduling issue. It's a matter of principle. I'll explain more when we're set. Also, cancel the rest of our booking here. Suites included. Charge the penalty to me personally if they refuse to release Carmen." Carmen exhaled slowly. "Understood. I'll call Damon too. Let him know to delay the opening and start rerouting the guests." Marcus ended the call. No shouting, no slamming phones. Just clean, simple action. He looked at his reflection in the lounge's dark glass window. He didn't feel righteous or vindicated, just tired of walking into rooms that looked at him and saw everything except who he truly was. A soft knock came. It was Damon. "You want to run through slides?" Damon asked. Marcus shook his head. "Change of plans." Damon raised an eyebrow. "Oh, we're leaving? I already made the call." It took a second for Damon to catch on. "They didn't even try to make it right, did they?" "Nope." "Want me to tell the board I'll speak to them myself? Just get the guests moving and make sure no one thanks the hotel on their way out." Within minutes, Damon quietly passed the word through subtle handshakes and nods. "Emergency relocation," he whispered to one group. "We've got a better setup just a few blocks over." And to another, Mr. Bellamy will explain everything. Meanwhile, Carmen was on the line with the Aurora Hotel, locking down their backup venue, getting staff in place, transferring AV equipment, and lunch catering. Marcus returned to the Cedar Room only once to collect his notes and laptop. A hotel manager finally appeared, folder clutched in his hand. Mr. Bellamy, I understand there was a mix-up at the front desk this morning, and I want to personally apologize. It was never our intention to offend you. You didn't offend me, Marcus cut in calmly. You just disqualified yourselves. This isn't about ego, it's about standards. The manager blinked. Can we make this right? Marcus zipped his laptop case and looked at him. You had your chance. He didn't raise his voice because the only thing louder than outrage is absence. And that Cedar Room, minutes ago full of top-tier investors, was now emptying fast as Marcus exited through the same lobby where he'd been told to wait outside. He saw the same receptionist watching him, her lips pressed in a thin line. The young man with the walkie-talkie was gone. He didn't stop. A black SUV waited outside, its driver opening the door. Marcus got in, his phone already ringing. But this wasn't the end of his day's story. It was the moment when others began to catch up. By the time the first tray of croissants reached the now half-empty Cedar Room, most of the guests had already gathered in the grand atrium of a different luxury hotel. Unlike the first venue staff, they didn't need convincing of who Marcus was. They welcomed him as though they'd been preparing for his arrival for weeks. Meanwhile, back at the original hotel, the conference signage was being taken down. The lobby that had once teemed with handshakes and business cards now lay with wide gaps. The manager's phone rang. Sir, the company has canceled all bookings. The suites, the Cedar Room, catering, everything. He blinked. That's not possible. It's conference day. But it was. Calls flooded in. The receptionist looked panicked, trying to catch the manager's attention while fielding another call from housekeeping. This guest just left without notice, someone said. They said to talk to Mr. Bellamy, another added. A security guard approached as the SUV outside drove away. Back at the Bellamy Dynamics office, the boardroom was quiet. Marcus sat at the head of the table, flanked by 4 senior staff and 3 partners from a private equity group out of Seattle. An investor cleared his throat. We heard about the switch. People are still talking about it. Marcus leaned back slightly. Is that a problem for you? Not at all. In fact, it told us more about your leadership than any slide deck ever could. Another investor nodded. It's rare to see someone with that kind of control under pressure. That's where trust comes from. Marcus gave a small nod but didn't gloat. This wasn't about winning. It was about never playing by a rigged rulebook in the first place. Later that evening, as he walked through the quiet floor of his office, stopping briefly before a whiteboard filled with scribbled diagrams, sticky notes, and equations, Damon was there too, sipping from a chipped mug. You know, they left out the part where the valet ignored you, Damon said. They always leave something out. Doesn't matter, Marcus replied. People know what it was. Those who need to know got the message. He looked over the whiteboard again. When we built this place, I didn't want it to be flashy. I wanted people to feel seen. Damon nodded. They see you now. Marcus said quietly. They always saw me. They just never expected me to be the one signing the checks. He turned toward his office door, flicked off the lights, and paused. Let's keep building. Before he left for the night, however, he returned to the hotel. Instead of disappearing into the darkness, Marcus stepped back into the lobby, gathering the remaining hotel staff, those still lingering in the corridors. He placed his business card on the reception desk as a silent emblem of his principles. In a calm, steady voice, he began an impromptu training session. Today, you've witnessed what happens when a guest is made to feel invisible. Respect isn't granted by a polished lobby or a 5-star rating. It's earned by every interaction you have. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to leave a mark so that every person who walks through these doors knows their worth. As he spoke, he adjusted his father's watch. It's ticking, a reminder of his own humble beginnings and the legacy he wished to instill. The staff listened intently, their eyes reflecting a mixture of regret and resolve. This wasn't punishment. It was a chance to change the system from within. Later that night, in the back seat of the SUV, Damon broke the silence. "You ever think about telling that story? The 22-year-old version?" Marcus smiled faintly. Not for sympathy, but for clarity. People think these things just happen in a single moment, but it's about patterns repeated and buried over time. He paused, then added softly, "Remember, you don't yell at the wall. You build a door somewhere else." In the quiet that followed, Julian, a once unsure junior analyst who had been watching from the sidelines, listened intently. Earlier that day, he had expressed his doubts about his place at Bellamy Dynamics. But now, inspired by Marcus's composed strength and the conviction in his words, Julian's eyes shone with a new determination. "You handled it with class," Julian later said as he gathered his notes. Marcus replied, "Your potential is greater than you know. One day, you'll be the one leading a room full of eager minds at the Summit Link conference." Years later, that promise would be fulfilled as Julian confidently took the stage, embodying the leadership that Marcus had quietly passed on. As the SUV pulled to a stop in front of the Bellamy Dynamics building, glass, steel, and quiet pride, Marcus and Damon stepped out. The receptionist in the lobby waved them up, holding the elevator. In that moment, the day's lessons echoed in every silent gesture, a reminder that real power is not seized through anger but built through unwavering dignity and the courage to transform an entire system from within.